This holiday season, we all wish for hope and healing. Children and families who spend their holidays at the hospital deserve a reason to believe in first steps, in giggles, high fives, and hugs. For 150 years, Children's National Hospital has provided world-class care and groundbreaking research. Please donate today to help patients and healthcare heroes this holiday season. Visit childrensnational.org/holiday. That's childrensnational.org/holiday.
Right Night is a talk show with published authors, writers, and content creators discussing both the creative and technical sides of writing, as well as the industry surrounding it, from novels to screenplays to comics and more. And now, here's your host, author Travis I. Sivart.
Heyo, and welcome to Right Night. I am Travis Sivart. I'm your host, and there's a cat in my way. Tonight, we're going to talk about Anchor series and sequels, and we'll get to that in a few minutes. First of all, I want to let everybody know that we are an adult show with adult language and adult topics. For those of you joining us via podcast, thank you very much for that. I want to let you guys know we have a live audience in chat. So when you hear this noise, it means I'm going to be reading some comments from chat, though I might just slide them in without having to ding the bell, if you know what I mean. Also, I want to throw this at our chat right now is... Sorry, chat right now is throwing their underwear on stage. Thank you so much for that. I needed a spare pair. These
Whoa.
I've done the 4-day thing with these. We're good. Which, by the way, my quick thought is that's a horrible idea, because when you turn them around, doesn't that mean you can have streaks on your junk now? Ew. So, yes, I'm Travis Sivart. I have written an incredible series called 27 Thoughts on Social DIY, which includes things like 27 Thoughts on Writing. They are super short, simple, to the point, lean, with no fat books. And they cover anything from writing to pipe smoking to steampunk to, I forget what the fourth one in the series is. So there we go. Now I'm going to pop this right over to the incredible and awesome person who's on your screen on the right-hand side, Michael Thompson.
Hey, what's up, everybody? My name is Michael Thompson. I'm an independent author and illustrator of many things of sci-fi, fantasy stuff. And one of them is Winslow Hoffner's Incredible Encounters.
Great book.
Folkloric fantasy, high seas, cryptids, sea monsters, epic tales of adventure told by the gallant fisherman Winslow Hoffner to a couple of journalists who discover their small harbor town is harboring incredible secrets. You can find it on my website, michaelthompsonbooks.com, MichaelThompson books.com, as well as my other series like Chicken Boy and World of the Orb.
Very good. Aaron?
Hi, I'm Aaron Kennedy, Aaron, last name Kennedy, just like the Dead Presidents. Not to be confused with the band The Dead Presidents. Author of Persona Non Grata, first in the Ships of Valor series, currently working on Icarus Black, set in the same universe. I've been published in the Army Times and the NCO Journal for my nonfiction works. Yeah, that's about it.
Very good. I also want to remind folks about our other podcasts. We have Talk of the Tavern. We have Stealing for Survival, the Dungeons & Dragons game that's played in the world that I'm currently writing a novel in, the third novel in the series, and the second series in that world. Don't forget, you can find Aaron Kennedy's books at bit.ly/Aaron Kennedy. That's bit.ly/AARON Kennedy, like the deceased president. And also mine at bit.ly/Travis Books. That's bit.ly/Travis Books. And that's our merchandise as writers. So to show your love and support, grab a book and post a review. So there we go. A couple other things to give you the timeline of where we're at. This week, when we recorded this episode, there was a presidential election, and Joe Biden had come in the lead, and there's that. But also, it's NaNoWriMo. This is November National Novel Writing Month, and we're definitely showing some love and support to that on each episode that we do during this month. Okay, I think I got it all covered on that. Let's get straight to the topic. So, action series and sequels. One thing we love as consumers of entertainment is when somebody does more of what we loved. So whether that's a second or a longer series. And there's reasons to do this above and beyond people love it. There are business reasons to do it that we're going to discuss. And during this, I'd love to talk about some of the people, shows, books that we love because of the sequels. Possibly didn't necessarily catch us on the first one, caught us on a later one and made us go back to the first or more, as well as what we're doing in our own writing journey in this. Aaron, can we start with you? Got some thoughts on the topic?
Sure. Yes. So, I would like to talk about vanilla ice cream. Okay, so
I'm just wondering if it's French.
to chocolate ice cream.
No. Okay, no, I'm gonna just hit this up. Okay, so vanilla ice cream. Okay, vanilla is one of the most nuanced flavors there is. Okay, it goes with everything. People love it. It sells probably the best out there. Yes, there's chocolate, there's peanut butter, but when it really boils down to it, vanilla is superior.
Oh my.
Okay.
That's a bold statement.
Yes. People are going to argue this all day long, and they are wrong.
Go on.
Okay. No. Yes, you can have your peanut butter chocolates. You can have all this other stuff, but they're going to keep coming back to vanilla. Okay, and they're going to go, oh, I would like vanilla with chocolate. I would like vanilla with peanut butter. I would like vanilla with sprinkles because it's a great standby. Take a look at our series. All right, you have Rocky. You have Rambo. Okay, how many movies are in the Rambo series? How many movies are in the Rocky series? How many movies have Sylvester Stallone in it? Okay, Apollo Creed first appears in Rocky. Okay, we have 6 movies in the Rocky series, and then we have Creed and the second Creed movie on top of that, which are all part of the same damn series.
Spinoffs.
They're spin-off. They're not even spin-offs. They're continuations. They're reboots. Okay? Of which Jay and Silent Bob make fun of. Okay? And they're part of a reboot series, which are all part of the same View Askew-verse. Which goes back to friggin' Clerks, Dogma, Mallrats, Chasing Amy, Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, all of that. We like familiarity. We like the familiarity of vanilla and all this, which I'm a firm believer of capitalizing on because I wrote Persona Non Grata. I was going to create the Ships of Valor series. I created this nice little tight universe. And was writing the second book called Politicus, okay, where our lead character, Barry Gadsden, is taking the lead. And I got stalled on it, and I realized something. I realized it wasn't working. So the book is dead stopped right at the height of the book. And I'm like, you know what? Something's not right here. And I had an idea for another character called Icarus Black. Icarus Black is Harry Potter in space. In a very simple explanation.
Good pitch.
It is a very good pitch. Thank you very much, sir. I freaking stole that pitch from you, sir. I thought, how would Michael Thompson explain this? I was like, I've got a space opera, and I've got a kid right at that age. Damn it, it's Harry. It's Harry Potter in space.
Very good. Very good.
Right.
I'm honored that you.
Right. Can I do this in 5 words? Yes, I can. Let's try it in 4. And I did. But I wanted to build familiarity. And I wanted to do it in how many books? How long can I stretch this out and how much money can I make off of it? I mean, can I do it in 2 books? No, really, I was like, okay, I want to have a good character development. I want to have great arc. And I'm like, okay, 3's. 3's the magic number. And I'm like, you know what? Star Wars has 3 arcs of 3. Let's do that. So I stole that because I'm a bloody thief. And I'm not gonna lie, it seemed like a good idea at the time. So we did that, and then I stole from myself and go, you know what? The ship's the best damn character in my other book.
I stole from myself.
Did you flip a coin to do it?
Yeah.
Nope, not at all. I knew what I was doing at the time. I didn't need to. So I said, I got 3 arcs of 3. I got a ship. I got a character with a kick-ass name.
He does have a great name. I remember when you first dropped that name on
Right.
the show, and we're like, that's a badass name.
Right. And you know what? Thinking of badasses, I needed a badass quote. And I said, you know what? You know how you become a badass? By doing badass things.
Yeah.
And that's where I'm at right now. So what do you think, Michael?
Wait,
love
we
all
don't get a
that. I
chance
really-
to comment on this first?
Well, no, I'm just letting him comment, and then you get to comment,
Okay.
and then we'll go back to me for rebuttal.
Okay.
We're revealing.
Because that's how I roll.
I like it. I loved your vanilla monologue. Like,
As well you should, sir.
It
Because
drew
it's
me in.
badass.
Aaron's becoming the.
I am the second best orator since Barack Obama. His friends call him Barry.
This is like, I was thinking about your vanilla and the tagline of vanilla. It's vanilla. They always come back.
Dun, 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 dun.
Yep.
Baby.
What was I gonna say?
We don't know.
I don't know. I love the vanilla thing. Okay. So marketability and also planning out the series. So going toward what calls to you. I think that's a really smart move. Wherever you're being beckoned creatively, that should, I think, take the first take precedent over the other things that may draw you to do different works. If you're drawn to it, if it's calling out to you, if it's unfolding in your mind naturally, I think that it was smart to sort of jump ship or spaceship, as it were, and fly into your news. All sorts of cleverness happening on Right Night.
You know Travis loves puns too, right?
I know.
Okay. I'm still not sure how vanilla fits into sequels.
I don't know, but it was so captivating.
It was definitely captivating, but I'm still stuck.
Hey, have you bullshitted today? Because I have.
It was familiarity. That was it. That was the metaphor.
Right. That was the key. Okay.
Yeah.
So, I don't know if I have much to say to what you just said, because
Because I think I caused an aneurysm.
mesmerized. Instead, I'll read comments. Weird One says, and then you realize the book didn't taste like vanilla. To Ginger says, gasp, you mean you stole another writer's idea? That's why you shouldn't read other people's work while you write. Sarcasm, by the way, because we discuss that a lot, is read other people's work. Learn the good and the bad from them. So, no, I really don't have much to follow up on what you said there. What about you, Michael?
Nor should you.
I stole from myself is another one of my favorite Right Night quotes now. That and everything involving the coin in the previous episode.
I think we have a new show title, sir. I stole from myself.
I stole from myself, writing the sequel. Yeah, I think that's so I recently finished writing what is the final draft, or the just nearly almost quite possibly just with a little bit more polished final draft of my sequel.
I'll be the judge of that, sir.
I'll have it on your desk in the morning.
Thank you.
Of Winslow Hoffner's Incredible Encounters. This is the second Winslow book. I'm not going to reveal the title yet, but for our viewers on Twitch.tv, I'll show you my little manuscript here. This is there it is. Yeah,
I don't think the cover's very catchy.
Yeah,
I know, and it's upside down.
It's a little floppy too because it's all paper. I had to graduate to rings instead of the brass colored fasteners. So because this is a little bit thicker than the first one. And I was talking to Travis on the phone.
That's what she said.
When I was in the middle of writing this, because I started writing this during the lockdowns, and I was like, and I told him, I said, yeah, it's bigger. It's bigger. And Travis says
that's what she said.
About 25% larger, 30%. And I was like, yeah, I think exactly. And he's like, yeah, of course. And then he broke down the math and like the expansion of the world that occurs in the sequel. I was like, you know your stuff, my dude. And it was incredible. So, and it was interesting because I'd written sequels.
At Capella University, education is as smart as the world around us. With the FlexPath format, you can take classes at your own pace, set your own deadlines, and even leverage your previous experience to move faster. Now that's smart. Learn more at capella.edu. At Capella University, education is as smart as the world around us. With the FlexPath format, you can take classes at your own pace, set your own deadlines, and even leverage your previous experience to move faster. Now that's smart. Learn more at capella.edu.
For Chicken Boy. And Chicken Boy kind of it has a it's a little bit more, each one's a little bit more contained. You know, there's the villain shows up and they have to work together to try and figure out how to beat the villain. There's an initial fight. I sort of noticed like an Chicken Boy structure within those, but this will be my first novel sequel, and I'm noticing that and to tell this story, how the structure sort of adjusted, and how the focus of the story adjusted, and who has the spotlight more so in the sequel. I wonder if you guys noticed that, if the spotlight of attention for the story sort of finds a new focus when you're writing the sequel.
I definitely have some responses to what you've said there. First of all, What I'm hearing from what you're saying, it sounds like when writing sequels, and I have thoughts on my own here that I'll go into later, one thing, when you're writing sequels, there's formula versus free form.
Mm-hmm.
Chicken Boy, you have a formula. It's going to follow the same pattern each time, which creates comfort in your reader. They know what to expect. It's just a new story with that same framework. Free form is where you go in it's a little more free, obviously, from the word itself. Now, to answer your question, do you find that? Yes. Matter of fact, in the books that I'm writing now, the Portal series, where I'm working on book 3, I purposely set it up that way, where the focus does change. Because each book, there's 3 primary characters, and each book, at the end of one leaves. And in the next book, a new one comes in. So you always have 2 characters that you know, and 1 character that's new to the world. So I can reintroduce a world if somebody picks it up in a later book. They're getting the world shared with them for the first time also. And this is allowing me to change that focus. But I do find, as I go further on, I love focusing on villains because they're a one-shot, and it's a beautiful thing of, you kind of explore them intensely for a short period of time instead of stretching their story out. You've got to get straight to their core. And I do love that. Aaron, thoughts on what he just said?
So because I've got this one mapped out as in a much bigger arc, I freaking did the 3 arcs of 3. So I had to plan out my villains in 3 big villain arcs.
Nice.
Right. I've got a Federation arc, an Imperial arc, and my 3rd arc, which I'm not revealing at the moment. I'm dealing with basically a crumbling empire as everything's happening. So I didn't want to create the situation of where I'm dealing with the next big bad after the next big bad after the next big bad. So I've got a continuation of villains that are happening. But I also wanted to have the situation to where, yes, the situation is resolving at the end of book 1, but the problem is still progressing. So things are getting darker.
Yeah.
Overall, one problem is fixed, the next problem is still there, but everything has got to kind of move forward. So you're on this roller coaster to where you're going up, down, up, down, up. You hit a culmination point to where things are bad at the end of the first arc, resolve, and you're moving into this thing.
It's a rhythm.
It's a very much so a rhythm, so that one arc, Icarus is friggin' progressing forward. Val, the ship, is progressing forward, because what I've done is I've set them up as parallel characters that are doing their thing. Our mentor character is along for the ride. Treat him as our Obi-Wan Kenobi. As he's going along following these two characters, he's a father figure to one, a mentor for the other. They have their own conflicts as they're doing their thing. So I've got to create interpersonal conflict. I've got to create villain conflict between our mentor as everything that's happening. And I've got to create the situation that's got to affect all four of them constantly. So the tone is definitely shifting as it's all reflecting off of each other.
Yeah. Yeah, tonal shift, I think, is inevitable.
Right.
When you're doing a long series.
To tie it into the Harry Potter analogy, when you look at the first one, the villain they're just focused on the school and the villain there. This is more akin to Star Wars, to where Empire Strikes Back is a dark friggin' movie. Return of the Jedi is kind of light in comparison. Just because, shoot, at the end of Empire Strikes Back, Luke's got his hand cut off, Han's friggin' frozen in carbonite.
Spoilers.
I know. And you find out that friggin' Darth Vader has been screwing Chewbacca the entire time.
Was that the special editions?
It was. I mean, had we been watching the subtitles, we would have known all along. Because that's what R2-D2's been saying as he's been beeping along.
Mm-hmm.
One thought to add to what Aaron was saying there before I voice my thoughts on the topic is something I've done in the Portal series is there is a third-tier character, a second-tier villain in Book 1 that becomes the primary villain in Book 2. And the same thing from Book 2 to Book 3. So basically the arcs have interconnected where you have a lesser arc in the first book and it becomes the primary arc in the second book as the villain moves his motivation and goals forward. And I found myself, without ever meaning to, doing this. And now as I'm writing the third book, I'm seeing where I have a place that I can take a familiar third-tier character or a second-tier villain and possibly put it into the fourth book where it can create that same arc. So each book stands alone, but if you're reading the whole series, you're seeing where everything has affected everything else and influenced it. Now, my thoughts on the topic itself is, of course, the business side of a series is if somebody finds you later, they have stuff to go back to. And they feel it's worth the investment of time when you have a series. It creates a loyalty because people love to binge things. Look at Netflix for the most recent, or any streaming service for the most recent. They love to sit down and just binge this. Readers are no different. Any person who likes entertainment wants to know more of the story if it's a good story that they enjoyed. But I'll say there are a couple types of series. There's episodic, which is what Portals is. Each book is standalone. But like the Indiana Jones or the Pirates of the Caribbean, there can be callbacks to the other book, so it's tied together besides just characters. The second type is a continuation series. This would be like George Martin's Game of Thrones, to use the common name, though it's actually the name of the first book, not the series. And then there's a connected series. So this might be a shared world. It might be a shared theme. I do this a lot in my cycle books, my steampunk cycle, as well as Talent Agency, where they're interconnected stories to create a larger arc. So it's showing what's going on in the world, whether it's the same characters going from story to story, where they're separate adventures, if you will, but it creates a larger arc, or such as Talent Agency, where they are separate characters in each story, but there is an overlying arc of the antagonist through each story, which is not an individual, but a corporation, which in the 90s we discussed if that was an individual or not. And that's a whole nother topic for a different show. Couple of comments. Ginger points out that Chronicles of Narnia did that through most books, and that would be, the same characters, different adventure and whatnot. And in response to Aaron's comment on Star Wars, Empire Strikes Back called you back to the third movie. A lot of people talk crap about it, but Jedi would have been nothing without the setup from Empire. And that's exactly true. The Empire totally set up the whole story arc for the third movie, which is probably why I was so disappointed in Ewoks, because I didn't feel it related to the story arcs I cared about.
Well, one of the big things on that one was
Marketing.
It was when it was supposed to be a much bigger. It was actually supposed to be like 9 movies, and Return of the Jedi, or it was supposed to end up being Revenge of the Jedi. Han was supposed to die in Jedi. Friggin' Luke was supposed to end up dark and vicious, and it was the continuation of that story was supposed to be much darker than it ended up being.
Right.
And they ended the series at that point instead of continuing along the path that they ended up taking.
Right. It's by the way, here's a question from the chat audience. Spacey Tracy is here, asks, have you ever written a standalone book, then later turned it into a series?
So Persona non grata was always intended to be one of 4 of the books, Ships of Valor. It wasn't necessarily supposed to be a continuation book. Politicus, I turned it into a continuation, just following that story along. Each of the Ships of Valor books was supposed to be focused on one of the 4 ships. I just started the story immediately thereafter. But Persona non grata itself is standalone.
So, yes-ish.
Yeah.
Yes-ish.
What about you, Michael?
Yeah, Winslow was originally going to be just a collection of short stories. Because I had written Gambo, which is now the first chapter, and Giganteus, which is now the finale of the book, in high school. And those 2 stories were, they were separated by quite some time. And then when I was in college, I wrote The Trouble with Mermaids, which became the second chapter of the book. And it followed directly after the events of Gambo, or what happened in Gambo. We see the story that John writes, and we see John in his work environment for the first time. And as I was writing it, and I was preparing the marketing for this originally, I was like, okay, this will be like my little Sea Stories short story compilation with the same characters, but different monsters. And then as I was writing it, I was like, oh, there's an underlying story here. There's an arc happening. And then Winslow's past and everything with the agency and his former friend Scialpi and everything that happens there. And I'm like, wow. And so it turned into a book. And at that point, I thought it was originally just going to be a standalone book. This will be my standalone. I'll have it to sort of add flavor to the other stuff, because I had an ongoing Chicken Boy series, and my primary focus was going to be World of the Orb. But the book came together really fast, and I had all these ideas, and I was very immersed in the world that was unfolding, this incredible world that Winslow makes our main character John aware of. And then when I started writing the second one, it starts with a brief flashback, which is and this is very fun, because it's an event that was mentioned in the first book in conversation in the middle of the book, when Scialpi says to Winslow in their car ride, he says, if speaking about the Beast of Busco, the reports of it, he says, if they're true, they'll certainly give Canvey Island a run for their money. And we start on Canvey Island in the second book. So, haha. And so it's pretty cool. So I really liked what you guys said about planting the seeds. And, all of that stuff is in the first book, world building and lore, and it's things that raise an eyebrow, raise a question. And then the second book, it's cool to be like, oh, here it is, and here's what happened. And then, of course, more questions arise. So yeah, Winslow is one of those things, and because I think especially for a few reasons, but partly because of the lockdown, when I didn't have any events.
At Capella University, education is as smart as the world around us. With the FlexPath format, you can take classes at your own pace, set your own deadlines, and even leverage your previous experience to move faster. Now that's smart. Learn more at capella.edu. At Capella University, education is as smart as the world around us. With the FlexPath format, you can take classes at your own pace, set your own deadlines, and even leverage your previous experience to move faster. Now that's smart. Learn more at capella.edu.
Anymore, and I shifted more to the creation of the product. Winslow is a shorter book than World of the Orb, and I calculated I calculated from word count that writing the entire Winslow series that was unfolding in my mind at the time, that it would be about the length of one big World of the Orb novel, to write the rest of the Winslow stories. So I decided that during this time when I don't have the events, that I would shift to that. Plus, it was fresh in my mind, so it was a good choice for me at the time. So that was part of the decision to do that. And I just recently become aware of the term anchor series, and having a complete finished series on the table or on your virtual bookshelf is a very strong thing.
It is.
And
I
plus,
want to go into
anchor,
that more in a few minutes, that's for sure. Tajinter said, sometimes you can write. Sometimes as you write, you can feel like the story is over, but looking back, you have all the story hooks right there to latch on to. And that is true. It's interesting. We may have a haunting.
What do you mean?
Andrea, my other half, for those that don't know, is in the other room. And she says, I think the office, her office, is haunted. Light started flickering, then cut off. As I got up, it came back on again. Went to sit down. It cut off again. Left the room, came back on. Go in, lights cuts off. Check the switch, seems a little loose, but can't work without light.
Huh. This is interesting.
Well, it all relates to the Talk of the Tavern episode we did a few weeks ago, where we told true ghost stories that happened to us. And in the middle of that broadcast, as we were recording the podcast, something that had been on her wall for years fell. And there was no big sudden movements in the room, no doors opening, no cats doing anything. So, yeah, just an interesting tidbit there. With series, I'd like to talk a little bit about what we mentioned before, the anchor series. But I'd also like to bring up how you write a series, because sometimes you do start out with just a single book. And you've got to evolve it into a series. Other times you start out with a series concept, and then you have to break it into regular books. Now, before I pass on this topic for you guys to throw some thoughts in, before I put mine in, I will preface this with, I personally dislike it when anybody ends a book on a cliffhanger where you have to get the next book to find out what happens. Now, I love it when they give you the hooks for the next book.
Yeah.
But please give me a climax and a resolution to this book. And by the way, some of the most popular authors out there in the modern writing world have done this. George R. R. Martin has done this. Robert Jordan has done this, both of them fantasy authors. And as much as I've enjoyed their books, oh my God, stop it. But that's me.
Don't sell me half a book.
Please. Please. Or how about cut it off 2 chapters earlier? So you have a resolution. Open your next book with that. So,
Yes.
thoughts about either how to write a series, whether you're starting with a series concept or a standalone book and growing from there. And what was the other thing we were talking about? Damn it, I forgot. Anybody listening when I spoke? Because I know I wasn't.
I'm sorry. I was talking to Ginger about my drinking habits. Apparently, I hold my mug in an Australian way or something.
Upside down?
I don't know. I was holding the handle directly vertical. Is that an Australian thing, or am I a robot?
Directly vertical?
I don't know what I'm doing with my hands. Am I?
Okay.
I don't know what I'm doing. Do I need help, guys? Do I need an intervention?
You're okay. We'll
Well,
talk
yes,
about
but not about that. Keep in mind, so friggin', I come from editorial side of things, so a lot of my stuff is pre-planned.
Mm-hmm.
The articles that I've had published for Army Times, NCO Journal, and whatnot. The first one was an experimental piece.
Mhm.
It started off with, you know what? It was basically a challenge. I was like, I could write a friggin' article in regards to this. This was my article in regards to the Army has an uncontrolled, or the military has a problem with developing leadership in concurrence with physical fitness. We have basically set up, in order to be a good leader, you have to be physically fit. What they have done is they've created a causal relationship between things based on a correlation. Therefore, if you are not physically fit, you are a bad leader. There's an issue there. They don't seem to understand it. It's barriers to entry, barriers to promotion, so on and so forth. In essence, we've promoted people that are stupid only because they're strong. That's the article. Me and a Army major, now Lieutenant Colonel, wrote about 20,000 words. Well researched, actually extremely well researched, cited, submitted it. And when it boiled down to it, they go, holy crap, this is amazing. Nobody will publish it because it's about 17,000 words past everybody's limit. Trim it down. Roger that. We trimmed it down, got it to about 3,500 words. They edited it some more, changed them, and got it to about 2,500 words. We got it published.
There is a wonderful and Aaron, don't forget where you're going with this, because I don't want you to lose track of this.
No,
But
you're good.
I started out doing short stories. It built certain writing muscles. Knowing how to take an object lesson, a point, or any one thing and boiling it down to its barest essence and cutting out all the fat, where you could take 20,000 words down to 15%.
3,000.
Yeah, of what it was. That's an incredible skill to be able to do. And on the other hand, it's another skill set to take that 3,000 words and turn it into a full-length story.
Mm-hmm.
They're both worthwhile. Go ahead.
Yeah, we got it published. That's the big thing. Reserve the rights to publish it in its full article form and everything. Well received. It's actually my most read work combined of all the stuff that I've got.
Wow.
We've got of views and reads and all that. It's in the probably 20,000 realm.
Mm-hmm.
But it highlights kind of a point of where you can go with the kinds of things, and the formats that you've got to build up on. The other article does kind of the same thing. We were smarter about it this time of how we built it. We only had to trim it about 20% to meet formats. From there, I built up the experiment of the book. The book, much better. Trimmed it about 15%.
What book?
Persona non grata for fiction.
Now, did you work that paper into that book? Is that what I'm hearing?
No. These were both nonfiction. The fiction book friggin' was building those, but I built it. All these were.
Do you have rights to that first 20,000 words you wrote?
Oh, yeah. I own it outright.
If you own it outright, what I'd recommend is actually taking it and building on it in the sense of, here's the military core, here's the real world application, and write a nonfiction book using this.
Oh, yeah. We're looking at, I've got another one coming in. They'll probably end up merging the three into a monogram, or not a monogram, a
book?
It's not actually a book. There's a technical term for it.
But I'd recommend publish it so it sells on Amazon so everybody gets a hold of it.
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, well...
Yeah, but I own the rights outright.
The reason is, and I'll go into this later, I have done something like that. But go on.
Yep. But yes, I own the rights outright to the whole work. But some of it's working all that out there and developing those works into larger pieces, smaller pieces, component pieces even.
Agreed.
And that's the big piece there. When I was working on Persona non grata, I had a vision in my head of one scene. That's where I started from. And basically, it was just a vet returning home from what was the equivalent of an airport. That scene is no longer in the book. It's gone. But it was the starting point.
Yeah.
Something
it's not. Oh, go
I've
ahead.
definitely done is taken a short story and branched into a full story.
Oh, absolutely.
And in some
I've
cases,
still got that.
A short story that wasn't written, but in my head it was a short story. But as I started to explore the concept and the idea, I went, this is more than a short story.
Yep. The first 5,000 words of the original Persona non grata got cut.
Right, and that was your short story.
The roller coaster that is the book, it just didn't start.
Do you still have that short story somewhere?
I have every draft of Persona non grata.
What I'd recommend is grab that short story when you're ready. Not tonight, not this week, but as you publish your other books, especially book 2 of Persona non grata, where you go into, or the Ships of Valor, I should say. The book, book 2 of Ships of Valor, where you touch on the other ships, publish that short story for free on your website. That's your hook to your series where people get it for free. And it is also a little bonus extra to anybody who has bought the book. Here's a little more. Here's a little extra.
Yeah, I've got a couple of those. I've got friggin' little segues.
Smart thinking.
Yeah, that's a great thing for a writer to offer. Instead of offering a free book on Amazon, you offer that one short story that expands the universe just a little bit, just a little more.
Mm-hmm.
Just a teaser to get them into it.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, there's a Latin term for it. It's bellum friggin' war stories. Bellum, and then stories,
okay.
friggin' whatever the Latin term is. I can't remember. I got it written on the friggin' the
El
notes. Anytime I write a
Storio.
story in that universe. But it's stories from Whitecaps, the bar that's in there. But I've got those, and then the Icarus Black stuff. I've been building it slowly in there. Anytime I come up with, oh, okay, this makes sense for something that's going to happen in there. Something Val would do, something that John would do, something that friggin' Icarus would do, something that friggin' Oka would do. These characters that I've developed in here, the mentor figures, my Han, my friggin' Obi-Wan, my friggin'
Relating to that, one of the topics we'll get to in the weeks to come is the moral of the story, the character arc where they learn something, the lesson within the book. And I think your paper that you referred to that was 20,000 words whittled down to 2,500, that is a lesson that can be embedded in multiple books, that you don't have to be the perfect physical specimen to be incredible.
Oh, absolutely. And that's a thing that I've been trying to work out into the Icarus Black universe. And I touch on it into friggin' in Politicus. I mention it in Persona Non Grata. Space is the great equalizer for physical fitness.
Mm-hmm.
Because gravity doesn't affect us.
Mm-hmm.
Size actually becomes more important. If you're smaller, you're better off because you can fit in places better.
Yeah.
Strength doesn't mean much because everybody's super strong.
Yeah, and smart.
But not everybody's small.
And
Smart is
becomes
important.
very important,
Yep.
especially when you're fighting in 0G, considering push-off, considering angles, considering cover is a totally different story, which I want to move into a few other things because we only have about 15 minutes left here.
I'm sorry.
No, you were okay. And if you have more to say on that, I don't necessarily want to cut you off, but I want to introduce these other concepts. First of all, how to write a series. I want to talk about that. I want to give some thoughts on that. And what I'll say is, at one point in time, Talk of the Tavern, my other podcast, we changed the name to Sounds of Steam. It was a steampunk theme for about a year and a half. And in that, we did an episode that I called Steampunk for Simpletons. And afterwards, I went, this would make a great nonfiction book. And I took that one episode and the outline with the information we wanted to give in that one episode, 2 hours long, and turned it into a book. And that's what I'm hearing. That's what I'm feeling with that paper that you mentioned. Because personally, as a guy who's never been the first one to be picked on any kind of team, when it comes to physicality, there is other things people can offer.
Yeah.
I also wanted to touch on turning a short story into a novel where you have that great concept, which was your original thing that turned into Persona Non Grata, and how you do that. And I think that ties back into how to write a series. And we'll also touch on pantsing versus planning.
I've just linked that article, by the way, over in the Discord channel.
Awesome.
Or
Thank
excuse me, the Twitch channel.
Oh, very good. Thank you. Oh, I see it there. Yeah.
Yep.
So, Michael, do you have some thoughts on any of this stuff we've been saying?
Well, I think the biggest thing is to follow your instincts as a writer. All of these, it starts with like maybe that initial vision, like you mentioned, Aaron.
What if your instincts suck?
Well, that's where logic backs it up.
Well,
Write with your heart,
but
edit with your mind.
Right. I think you're always meant to start somewhere. You're always called. There's a call to action, right? There's a call, and it's either that vision or, and as you create it, you get a sense of what the art wants to be, and you have to go with the flow. In that sense, you don't want to like cram, your circular story into a square shaped structure, right? You have to. And that's something where when I'm writing a book and I'm like, oh man, these are some crazy decisions that on paper, would it might scare the creator, but it somehow works. And then where it needs more work, you don't want to go against that feeling. I think you want to stick with it and make it work. Yeah.
I have a thought on this. I read one book that was originally written as a blog. This person would post to their story every day or every week or whatever it was. When they got to a certain point, they published a book, and later they published another book. That book was so long and meandering. There was many times during the book I went, get to the point. What are we doing here? But this person had, I don't know, 1,200 reviews, mostly positive. People loved it. So this is something, as the planning side of things, I would have gone, oh my God, don't do this. Edit that down. Get a precise, tight storyline. But they had this huge, meandering story that people love. So this is where maybe your instincts suck. I felt this person's instincts suck. But they wrote a very successful story, which they built up an audience via blog, and it blossomed into this novel that is very successful.
Wow. And that's admirable, because it's like, and you talk about this, about like breaking the rules, about knowing the rules, understanding the rules, and then ultimately breaking the rules. And, for whoever that person was, it may have been like, it's calling me to write it this certain way. And, lo and behold, it speaks to other people. Well, so I stuck with it. That's the brilliant thing about art, is the subjectiveness, and then it was finding people match your interest.
It was character driven. And that's why I stuck with it through the whole thing, because I am drawn to characters.
Right.
The plot is secondary to a character. It's a character's arc, and it had constant character arcs, sometimes repetitive, where they go through the same lesson again and again. But
so do people.
Yes, they do. Throughout life, when you're 40 and you suddenly realize you've had to learn the same lesson 5 times and it still didn't stick, and now you're staring at this going, when am I going to learn? By the way, I want to read Tajinter's comment here. One of my biggest stories is a serial style based on the Penny Dreadfuls of old. Love that concept. And very putting them together into a larger, more robust world that links it all together. It works in that one story, but it's not something that would work well for a murder mystery. Always take your genre into account. This is something I did in the Steampunk Cycle books. They are a series of individual adventures that lead to a larger arc in each book with the same characters. They are Penny Dreadful style. They are essentially short stories, but like the Sherlock Holmes, there's a larger arc that branches across the multiple stories. And that's one way to do a series. It's taking that concept and blowing it up 10 times.
Yeah.
So.
And something interesting about Tajinter Mencher's genre there. When you're within a series, and you're within a series that has that is a certain genre, what you may end up noticing is genres within genres. It's like, here's the like persona non grata version of a whodunit or something, you know what I mean? So that you have these micro genres show up when you have this big series.
It's funny you mentioned that.
Yeah.
Book 3.
Hey, there we go. It's on the air. It's in the wavelengths.
That's something I've enjoyed. Book 3 of Portals is very much 2 or 3 chapters is one adventure, but the book itself is one large arc. And I could crop those 2 or 3 chapters and publish it separately if I wanted to. And it would be an arc of its own as they discover this one item and then the next item. And I'm enjoying writing it that way within the framework I set up in the planning stage before the pantsing stage. Now, we've only got about a couple minutes left. Can we give some thoughts on how to write a series if we haven't already covered in what each of you have said? Michael? Or Aaron?
I would say
either.
You want to I'll say one thing that I'll toss in is to remember consequences and where your characters are at emotionally and in their development, and how the effects of the previous book affect them in their current adventure, in their current story. So I'll say that's definitely something to keep in mind, of the continuation, the continuity. It's
Aaron?
important.
You've got a beginning, you got an end, you got to get the character from one point to another. That's really the big point there. With Luke Skywalker, friggin', he had to get from Tatooine to the celebration with the Ewoks. Everything in between, nobody gives a shit about. Or Harry, really, it didn't matter. It did not matter. He had to burn Vader at the cross. Or Harry Potter.
It didn't matter. I want to see the dancing teddy bears. Gosh darn it.
Really. Harry Potter had to get from underneath those stairs to King's Cross.
Yeah.
Now, the in-between's what's interesting. We got to figure that out. That's the hard part.
Yeah.
But if you don't know point A and Z, you got nothing.
I like what Tajintra's saying here. Not just the good guys, but the bad guys and even the NPCs if you can. That's true. Everyone's dynamic. Think of your characters as real people.
The villain is the most important. The villain is the most interesting person in the play.
Yeah, it tends to be.
Here's what I'll say, and I'm going to preface this with Avengers. Iron Man and Avengers. Tony Stark started out one way. Each movie, he had an individual character arc. You had a story arc, but he had growth. He had change. And Avengers kind of capped that. Here's what other thoughts I have on this is... Look, if you're going to take a short story and turn it into a book, that's great. If you're going to take a book and turn it into a series, that's awesome. Don't fill in the middle stuff with filler. Still
don't
make
force
it important.
Yeah.
And once you finish book 1, reread book 1 and find those loose threads that you left laying on the ground that weren't really important, but now you could draw them into your later story. This is what I've done with those third-tier characters, the second-tier villains, and brought them into the next book. And now this person who is left out in the cold at the end of book 1 is now the villain in book 2. And book 3, the one that was left out in the cold in 2. Aaron?
Don't be afraid to drop litter on the ground and turn them into seeds.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. Tajintra says, I just had that yesterday. So when writing a series, it's important to pay attention to what came before, is what we're each saying in different ways. And those can be little bits of gold that when put together can make a beautiful piece of art.
Yes.
So what I'm going to say is we're about to wrap this up. Any closing thoughts on the topics, gentlemen? Michael, anything?
No.
I kind of did my closing thought right there.
Yeah. I think what you said was brilliant. You know, the bits of gold. We're creating art. You know,
We are.
Listen to the work. Be the type of author you need to be for the type of art that you're creating.
Now, let's wrap this up. For anybody that has comments or thoughts, whether you saw this live on twitch.tv/Travis Tavern Talk, or whether you joined us on the podcast, You can always email us your thoughts that we could read on a later show at writenightshow@gmail.com. That's write, W-R-I-T-E, night, N-I-G-H-T, show@gmail.com. And also, I want to let you know if you have any birthdays coming up for yourself or other people, let us know. We'll give them some birthday wishes on air. And happy birthday to me. Because
Happy birthday.
November birthday. Other than that, we do have some amazing topics coming up here, which I'm going to tell you the topics we have coming up for next month here in just a moment. Oh, there it is. I got to pull up the document here so I can grab some of these topics here. Scrolling down. I should have had this up and ready. So, in the next couple of weeks, you're going to hear about book signings, how to insert badass quotes, writing for readers versus writing for viewers. And that's a very broad spectrum topic that will be very interesting, as well as tropes, cliches, stereotypes, and archetypes, and the good and bad of all that. Oh, thank you, Tracy, for wishing me that happy birthday, throwing your bits. A couple of comments from other folks who, as they were closing the show, Weirdwin, our moderator, thank you for being a moderator, by the way. I want to throw a quick thank you to folks here. I'll do that for moderators also. Weirdwin says, where's the moment the story is actually important? And Tajintra says, don't add things just to add things. Make them have a point. And thank you, Gary, for that happy birthday and those bits. Appreciate it, man.
At your aunties.
That's Gary's call sign there. Okay. So don't forget to check out our other podcast, Talk of the Tavern, as well as Stealing for Survival. Stealing for Survival, if you like the fantasy genre. It is us, Aaron, myself, and a few others playing in the same fantasy world that I write my fantasy novels in. I want to thank everybody for their bits tonight. I'm looking at you, Gary. I'm looking at you, Spacey, Tracy. Thank you for that support and that love. Much appreciated. As well as everybody who subbed, hosted, raid, purchased merchandise, or supported on Patreon, such as Ethan Strauss and Triple U, and our subscribers via PayPal, which is Berta and Musical Wizardry, and others. And most of all, thank you for everybody who joined us, whether you chatted or just hung out or listened to the podcast. And thank you to the moderators who are in chat, showing support by chatting, talking to others, interacting, and all that stuff. Aw, thank you to Jinter. More bits for me. Let's do some closing music. Let's get out of here. And we will catch you on the next show.
Good night, guys.
Hey, guys.
Thank you for joining author Travis I. Sivart and the other writers, content creators, and all-around amazing people for our discussion here on Writing. Join us again soon, and until you do, make sure you create with passion, enjoy the journey, and remember, every night can be right enough.
Sling TV, built to save you money and bring you the channels you love, including ESPN, AMC, HGTV, and more. Watch your favorite comedies, dramas, suspense thrillers, news, sports, and more for just $35 a month. And your first month is only $10. Sign up now and start streaming right away on your TV, phone, and tablet. Take control of your TV solution with Sling. It makes TV flat out better. Go to sling.com to sign up now and get your first month for just $10.